Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is At the Helm Sports. I'm your host, Derek Helm. Thank you for joining me for episode 185. Please be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. In the comments section, let me know, who would you rather play this week, Scottie Scheffler or Bryson DeChambeau on Draftkings? Because we're going to dive into the field, our favorite plays, some strategies. And joining me, I got the boys. We got James Fitzpatrick. Fitz, how we doing?
What's good? What's good? Good to be back.
And Dave Utnick. What's up, Utnick? How we doing?
Good, gentlemen. Ready to talk some majors golf.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's crazy that we're already at the third major of the year. Love the U.S. Open. I mean, touched on it a little bit yesterday. Everybody go check out that show. Betting preview with Steph Smalls. But U.S. Open and the Open Championship, I love for different reasons. The Open Championship is just kind of the atmosphere. It's totally different, just how early it starts in the morning. But the U.S. Open, as far as a golf tournament, definitely by far my favorite. Add to the fact that it's generally on Father's Day and actually get to watch a golf tournament and be totally left alone and actually don't have to be bothered at all. So it's pretty exciting. But where does the U.S. Open fall for you guys on the Roto?
So for me, it's number 2 behind Augusta and the Masters. Masters just, maybe it's just the first one, the course, just how exciting the tournament is. But
Yep.
The U.S. Open is definitely second, and it's up there. I love the U.S. Open. I love, the difficulty. I would test all aspects of the game, and I like seeing the pros struggle like I struggle. So, I like the U.S. Open second.
Yep, that's exactly my sentiments. Dave?
And yeah, I mean, it's tough to dethrone the Masters as number 1 on that list, especially with us living up here in the Northeast. Masters weekend is usually around the first time we can get out and play some actual golf. So other than, the allure of Augusta, Masters number 1, but being able to see, like Fitz was saying, golfers struggle out there because we watch each other struggle out there on, our Muni courses on a weekend in, week out basis. It's nice to see the pros actually have some trouble, and, we'll see a final score that, resembles a pretty good round for any of us.
Yeah. So we were talking before we hopped on, and we'll touch on this quickly, but I've been seeing some Discord back and forth that Scottie is basically on the level of Tiger already, and I don't want to take away from anything Scottie has done because he is an absolute juggernaut right now. He is a machine. He is incredible, the best golfer in the world. There is no debate to that. But to compare him to Tiger this early, it's just,
Not yet.
A lot of these sports outlets and just, I guess anyone in general trying to get content brings up the Jordan versus LeBron, or it used to be Jordan versus Kobe. There's always going to be this greatest of all time debate, but I think we got to wait at least probably a decade to even have this conversation. It's just Tiger was the best. He was dominant. I mean, clearly 15 majors. Now, if Scottie wins this one, maybe I'll start having the conversation, but I think it's way too early. Fitz, what about you?
I agree. I mean, I think he's, if he keeps this up, he's heading in that direction. Like I said, he's got to do it for longer. We've seen a lot of spurts of golfers where they're real dominant. We try to say, oh, this is the next great one, the next Tiger, and they kind of fizzle out. Golf is hard, and, big field's a lot of good golfers. But I'll tell you, I don't think we've seen, the run Scheffler's on right now, the way he's playing, I don't think we've seen anything like it since Tiger. I will say that. I mean, he's just so good with his ball strike, and everything is gained the way it works way around the course, and how he's just so much better than everybody else. I mean, he just laps the field a lot of the time. So he's just I think, we haven't seen someone this dominant since Tiger, but I think he needs to keep it up for a little while longer to be in that conversation.
And especially for as long as of a stretch as he's been doing it for, because now we are going on a couple of years where he's just absolutely dominant. John Rahm, before he went to live, had a stretch like this, but it was a small stretch, not to the level that we're seeing now.
So did Spieth. Spieth went on his run there. He was winning majors. He was great. Rory went on his run, majors. But they all fizzled out. But I don't think even they were as dominant as Scheffler is now. But like I said, if he can keep it up, then yeah, I think we can have that conversation.
I mean, you go back a couple of months, maybe even a couple of weeks right now. Before Scotty got his first win, Rory was winning everything, and you had Phil, out there saying he wasn't going to win another tournament, this year, which obviously he won in bunches. But for what he's doing, it's like Fitz said, it's the greatest thing we've seen since Tiger, but it's very far from Tiger's performance as well as his impact on the game. I don't know if anyone's enjoying Scotty winning as much as he does, where when Tiger was winning, and I guess we weren't really placing bets at that time, it was exciting to watch Tiger win after week. At this point, this is just fatigue of I really want to see someone other than Scotty win on a week-to-week basis because I don't want to see him at the top.
Right. And it's like because it's not even like a back and forth. When he wins, he just, like I said, he just laps everybody. It's never like a doubt that he's going to win. And like I said, it's not exciting. He just makes the right shot, plots along the course, and I appreciate it because he's just so good. But I get what you're saying, where it's, he's not really getting people, fired up for him winning.
Yeah, and it's crazy too because he can have his C game, and he's coming out winning some of these tournaments, and you can't undermine the dominance, but to compare him to probably the greatest of all time, let's pump the brakes a little. It's a little early.
It's premature.
Yeah, we can check back after it's been 5 years of this, year after year. Then we can have that conversation. But for now, it's another really good stretch of golf, and it's Scotty versus the field again this week.
Yeah, and then last thing I will say is I do think that there's a bit more variance in today's game of golf, just with the advancements in technology. Just everybody has a sports psychologist, the nutritionist. Like these guys are even the scrubs are far better athletes and golfers than what Tiger was going against. But Tiger definitely did still have his competition as well. But I will say that in the modern game of golf to dominate like this, because as we were saying, guys go on runs all the time, but those runs come to a screeching halt generally at some point. So we'll see if Scotty can keep it going. But I mean, what he's doing is definitely impressive. And I guess we might as well segue right into it. $14,400 on DraftKings. Pretty hefty price. I love the fact that they finally priced him up here, but I wish they would have made it a little bit harder to play him, because basically what they did was they were like, watch this. We're going to make Scotty $14,000, but everybody else is going to be $1,000 less than what they actually should be. So it makes it way easier to play Scotty. But Fitz, where you landed on Scotty? Because obviously most decisions are going to start with him this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna have my fair share of Scotty because he's most likely gonna win. He's the best in the field. He's playing the best in the field. I mean, just don't get cute and ownership and price. Like you said, it's not like he's priced out where every lineup with Scotty is stars and scrubs and looks awful. You can still make some decent lineups here with major pricing with Scotty. So I'm playing Scotty. Yep.
Yeah, and I would assume he's probably going to be somewhere around 30%.
Yep.
And I might be a little bit over that. I do think that Bryson will be higher owned. I don't know how much higher, because as I said, it is easy to get to Scotty here, but $3,400 goes a long way. I mean, you could you could play Bryson and someone else and still basically have the same amount that you would have with Scotty. But Dave, what are you thinking up here with Scotty?
Yeah, I mean, that lineup looks a lot better when you're saving that money to go down to Bryson, but I'm going to try to get as much Scotty as I can. I haven't built any lineups out. Like you said, you got the 5K range again, and there's legitimate golfers down there, not just, club pros from around the country. I'm going to try to make it work, but at the end of the day, I think I want more pieces than just Scotty and a bunch of scrubs in my lineup. I'd like to be over the fields, but once we actually start putting players into lineups and clicking buttons, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get there.
Yeah. So the crazy thing is, you put Scottie in a lineup, you have $7,120 left. That's definitely doable with this pricing. It's soft, as I said. There's guys that are $1,000 less than what they should be. Bryson and Rom together, you have 7,200 remaining. So those Bryson lineups are going to look way better, and people are going to feel way more comfortable. So I do think it keeps Scottie away from being that 40% that we've seen him sometimes this year. But you definitely, you're
They,
not going to get away with fading him, and I think
no.
you're going to have to
Yeah,
make a decision on Bryson too.
yeah. I mean, those lineups will look better going into the tournament, but they won't look better when Scotty wins.
I mean, you're still going to need other golfers to come up there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
7,100, your golfers that are right there in that range are Min Woo Lee, Sam Burns, Matt Fitzpatrick, which isn't terrible. You know,
Which
you can still
yeah, I
pick
like
up.
all of them, and you can go lower down. There's players down. We'll get there obviously, but in the low sixes, mid sixes, you can take one of those lower guys, and that boosts you up.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
there's things you can do with Scotty, even though
you
he's 14-4.
you still have win equity there, but yeah, I mean, when you look at, you know, and it's the same thing on a lot of the betting boards also. One Scotty versus a handful of other guys, or one Bryson versus a handful of other guys. You know, it really comes down to if you think it's Scotty versus the fields, or how many players you think have a legitimate chance of actually winning this thing. And if you think that number is greater than, you know, five, a more balanced approach might actually be more beneficial to a DraftKings lineup, even if Scotty wins it.
Yeah, I really think, as far as building with Scotty goes, I think you should probably go one of two routes. One, if you think that Scotty wins this and runs away with it, allocate the bulk of your lineups to him. 60% of your lineups, 80%, even if you're that confident. And then you can shotgun approach those guys down low, because the volatility at the US Open, obviously, it's ratcheted up quite a bit, especially when we're going to have 5-inch rough at the most difficult course in the United States. So I think you can either go that way, where you have to allocate a lot, or if there's certain guys that you do like down there, then you can play Scotty and just have a core a little bit tighter of guys and hope that they pan out. And then maybe you can allocate some of your lineups to Bryson, maybe Rom, a couple of these other guys. But I think it's got to be one of those two. And I would say the more variance you can get with Scotty, with the volatility of this tournament, I definitely think that that's probably the way to go here. Are either one of you considering playing Rory McIlroy? Because it just keeps going back and forth of, oh, nobody's going to play him. Nobody's going to play him. And maybe nobody should play him with the way he's been playing and the motivation levels of him. But I don't know if everybody's just saying they're not going to play him, or if he's going to be low owned. I don't know. I don't know what to do with him.
I hate Rory. He's such a
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. He's such a little cunt. But I'm not. So my stance now is, we talked about this before, Derek. I'm not playing him. And check with me later in the week, and don't let me, the low ownership talk me into, seeing his low ownership talk me into being cute and playing him. Like we just mentioned, I'm going to have, good amount of Scotty. You're not going to be overweight, but I will be overweight on right below him on Bryson. I think I like Bryson way more than Rory, and he's $1,400 cheaper. And then, you keep going down. I like a lot of guys better than Rory right now. Rory, you kind of thought when he, won the Masters, got that monkey off his back, he was just going to go on a tear and have this great year. And it's kind of had the opposite effect. He won the Masters, and then I don't know, whatever. They checked his driver at the one tournament, and he's just been, awful since. He hasn't driven the ball. He's trying out different drivers. And, if you don't drive the ball well at the U.S. Open at Oakmont, you're toast. So I'm not going to allocate, 12,400 and a lot of ownership on Rory at this point.
What about you, Dave?
He's got the distance that it should fit this course. I'd probably be in that camp of talking myself into low ownership as we get to Wednesday night here. I don't like it. Like Fitz said, he got the monkey off his back at the Masters, and doesn't really seem dialed in since. You know, you don't really know where his game is at. Saw a quote from him today. He shot an 81 in a practice round last week. So
Yeah,
that's not great.
he was 12 over at the the Canadian Open where he should have been. It was built for him. It should have dominated. It was a driver course, long, straight. He's won the Canadian Open how many times? Like it was all just perfect for Rory last week to just lap the field, and he was 12 over. Or something stupid. Like, I mean, I'd never get him right. If he wins this week and he burns me, then part for the course. But yeah, I'm off. I'm off Rory.
Yeah, I'd rather take the savings and go elsewhere too. But again, as you start fitting lineups in, the course should fit Rory. Just I'm not sure where his game's at right now, so I'll be light if I have any. But I'm going to try to keep myself out of talking myself into more.
Yeah, and I think it shouldn't just be an ownership play for him because you got to have confidence that his game is going to be there. Because I do think he will be the lowest owned up here, but how much lower owned is he going to be than Xander? How much lower owned is he going to be than Morikawa? How much lower owned is he going to be than Ludwig? Because I'd rather play all three of them over him. Now, when it comes to ownership, one thing I am going to look at is Rahm, because he seems like he's going to be really popular and look good at the PGA. I mean, he looks like he's rounding into form, more confident, not getting as angry. So I see a case for it. If I didn't bet Bryson, I was considering betting Rahm, but I want to see what his ownership gets to, because if he's close to Scottie and Bryson, I might just go elsewhere or just invest more in those two.
It's a tough range because everyone seems to be gravitating towards either Bryson or Scotty. And Xander and Rory are just not playing great golf right now. John Rahm is where the rest of the ownership is going to, get caught up if you start going cheap to save some money. But, you've got just those elite players in Xander and Rory that are expensive, but are just not in form, where they're going to have low ownership. And do you trust yourself that, this is where everything clicks for them? It's going to be a tough click. And, one of the two of those could end up just being ownership plays, but neither of their games are where it should be at the moment.
Yeah, and Xander especially, he's had some troubles off the tee and finding fairways lately, and that's not something you can really do here. So I don't necessarily know if I'm going to go to him. I do think that most people, if they're not starting with Scottie or Bryson, they will be starting with Rahm. I honestly think you probably do this week want to start with one of these guys, because I usually make a case for a balanced build, but this week I think you're losing a lot. And obviously there's only a couple guys in the 9K range and a couple less in the 8K range. So I don't see, pricing wise, why you wouldn't try and jam one of these guys in there as your first guy in.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think I'm going away from a balanced build this week. The U.S. Open, it's just a prototypical. There's a certain player, that wins at the U.S. Open, and it's the guys that test every aspect of your game. But you want guys that are long and straight, and all these guys up here. John Rahm's won a U.S. Open. He can, drive it far and straight and can putt and scramble. Xander, even though he's not playing great now, he's got great U.S. Open history, and he's one of the better drivers and ball strikers. We went over Bryson, Rory, and Scheffler. So I think you gotta. I'll eat Rahm chalk. I'll play Xander. I'm going to be overweight on Bryson. I think you got to have one of these, one or two of these, 10K above guys, because most likely one of them is going to win.
Yeah, the cream generally does rise to the top, but my only concern is if this plays like ridiculously difficult where even good golf shots are being penalized, that's when we could see some serious volatility and then just variance here. So hopefully that doesn't happen, because if that's the case, we could just see complete randomness. But if we move to this 9K range, all four of them, I think nobody's going to play Justin Thomas, and his recent major track record doesn't seem great. Gets a little wild off the tee, so I understand it. Cantlay, I think, makes a little bit of sense, but I'd probably just rather play Colin and Ludwig here. Colin obviously is going to live in the fairway, and Ludwig is pretty long and straight. So I think I'm probably going to play Ludwig and Colin and stay away from the other two. But Dave, what are you thinking in the 9K range?
I'm with you on Ludwig and Colin. I don't know what to do with Patrick Cantlay. I can't ever get him right.
Pretty much.
He cost me big time at the PGA. He was pretty much the missing link in a lot of my 5 to 6 lineups, but it's a low ownership play. He seems to fit this course really well. Not exactly sure where his game is at. I mean, he seems to be contending, but he hasn't won in a really long time. When you are paying above 9K, you probably want more win equity, especially if you're passing on some of the guys up top. So I wouldn't be starting with Patrick Cantlay. Maybe if you're going to put 2 9K guys in, he's one of them. But he's a tough. I'm on the fence with him right now. He's a guy I just never get right, but seems to match up to this course pretty well.
So you never get Cantlay right because Cantlay's rarely ever the right call. I mean, the guy doesn't. I don't know. He doesn't win. I'm off Cantlay. I probably won't have any at all. I agree with you on Morikawa and Aberg. Morikawa, like I say, going to stay in the fairway and go with his long irons. Hopefully he can, make enough par putts and stay out of trouble. Bear, same thing, long, straight, good history majors. I'm going to be heavy on those two. No Cantlay. And then, I don't know, I'm intrigued by 9K JT. I probably won't have a lot, but I think I will have some just, because if he does putt and, he's won this year, he's been in better form. So if he does show up with his A game, he can win here. So I'll play some JT, but I'll definitely be heaviest on Morikawa and A-Bear.
JT is going to be living in that 5-inch rough off the tee, and that's probably my biggest concern with him.
Probably, but all right. So on that, we're looking at guys. Like you said, you want to be long or accurate. So even if he is, in that rough, par is going to be a good score. So I want players that are, also good wedge players. Where if he's in the rough, he can punch it out. Can he get, from 100 to 125 yards? Can he get, stick a wedge close and hit a putt? JT can do that. So if, par is a good score, if he can punch out of the rough and be good with his short irons, I see an avenue at least there for JT. Not saying it's likely or going to happen, but I will have some of them because I can see a pathway.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I do worry about him off the tee. And the other thing I worry about is par is a good score. I mean, even bogey is a good score here. It's trying not to get those huge blow up holes, and Justin Thomas is definitely going to have several of those. It's just a matter of can he keep them to a point where they don't absolutely derail around, because that's been his biggest problem is he's playing incredible and then just absolutely shits the bed and double bogeys. So I do like what you said though. I think that's going to be an underrated thing that a lot of people don't look at this week is you're not going to be able to hit the green on your second shot every time if you're playing out of this rough. So guys that are good with the wedges, and it's Scotty's one of the best at this, is just course management. It's all right, let me take my medicine. Let me just hit it to where I'm comfortable with a wedge and put my wedge inside of 10 feet and make the par putt. So I do think JT is someone that could do that. And you probably don't need much of him to get overweight on the field. I mean, I'd say he's maybe 8% owned at most because I think the guys around him are going to be pretty popular, starting with Tommy Fleetwood at the top of the 8K range. I do think that he's the most popular there. Again, this is a really small range, but I hear a lot of love for Neiman, 8,600. I think if he gets a little bit too high owned, I'd rather go to Hovland. I'd say Neiman is probably a little safer with the current state of his game, but Hovland probably still has a higher ceiling, would be my guess. So if I'm shooting to win a GPP, I'd probably rather Hovland over him. And then just Hideki and Koepka with the current states of their game, probably not going to get there, even though the prices are fair. But Fitz, what are you thinking here?
I love this 8K range. Yeah, you mentioned a Fleetwood guy that's going to be accurate, keep it in the fairway. He's got good U.S. Open history. I think he can, stand this test. Can he win? Probably not. But I think you don't need him to win at 8,800. So I like Fleetwood. Neiman's just playing, even though he's been on live, out of sight. He's been playing awesome. He's another guy, long, accurate. I like Neiman. Hovland, he's good. I think he's going to win a U.S. Open at some point, and his game has been kind of rounding into form. And like you said, big upside. I like Hovland, and guys, can't help myself. Major Brooks, U.S. Open man. Yeah, he's been so bad, but I'm just talking myself into it, saying he loves it when it's difficult. That's Brooks's game is these super tough where par is a good score and a +1's the winner, and I just help me, guys. I keep talking myself into it, saying the U.S. Open is going to be difficult.
I saw potentially
He's
dealing with an injury.
Okay, so there you go. Please talk me out of it, because right now I'm like I'm just so tempted to.
I want to look more
Major
into
Brooks.
it, but supposedly somebody saw him during a practice round and he was walking around gingerly. They didn't know if it was his back or his knee.
Okay.
Supposedly he can't putt this year either, too. So
yeah,
this is not the place for the putter to fail you.
I'll probably still play him, and then listen, Matsuyama, has not in great form, but he's, I'll play some Matsuyama too. He's a guy that, can definitely, scramble, get around. It's, can he make enough, par and bogey putts? But I'll play everyone in this range.
Yeah, the worry with Hideki for me too is, his biggest struggle this year has been the driver, and especially accuracy. So it's just, if he's not playing that well, and especially not hitting that driver well, I don't know if I really love it there. Dave, what are you thinking in the 8Ks?
Yeah, off the tee is going to be really important. You want to set yourself up in the fairways for success here for sure. My first pick of the week was Victor Hovland at 65-1, 60-1, something in that range. Sitting here looking at his U.S. Open history, and it's not very good. So not too happy about that at the moment, but I think his game fits this course well. He's going to hit it straight off the tee. He's great with his long irons. Might have run into a little trouble around the greens, but everybody is this week. So I like him there. And like you guys were talking about with Tommy's game fits this U.S. Open as good as you possibly can anywhere. I don't think he's never won in the United States. So, I think the win equity is a little out the window here, but I think a top 10 is definitely in the cards for him there. So I like that play. And I'm not touching Brooks. I'm not touching Hideki. I just don't want – it's tough for someone to find their game at a course like this. So I'd rather stick with form at the moment. I think Neiman was more expensive at the Masters than he is here, and this is a better fit, so I'll be playing him too.
Yeah. The 7K range is interesting because I said it at the top. Just some of these guys are $1,000 less than they should be. I don't know why you would make a 4-person 9K range and a 5-person 8K range. Shane Lowry should be in the 8K range. Sepp Straka should be in the 8K range. Hatton should be in the 8K range. I don't understand this pricing whatsoever. And as a result, especially Lowry and Straka, I think they're going to be really high owned. And I got to see how high owned they are because I want to play them. I'm probably Straka over Lowry, but Dave, what do you like in the 7K range here?
Straka's just been grinding big tournaments all year long. Didn't show up at the PGA Championship, but not a lot of guys did. So he's definitely a good play from there. Of course, you got to watch his ownership. If everybody is flocking, to the same couple of guys, like you said, Lowry and Straka are probably going to command most of this ownership here. those two guys really fit, the course the way that I'm seeing it. Might get into Terrell Hatton. I'll look into his stats a little bit more, but I think he's a good grinder for this course. And as we go down a little bit further here, Russell Henley and Corey Connors are both going to hit fairways all day long. I think both of them can really, like you were talking about with strokes gained course management, these guys can make their way around the course even though they're not the longest out there, and just put together solid rounds. So I like both of those guys too.
Yeah, I love Henley this week. I love what he did at the Memorial. I do think that this is a course that is definitely going to suit him. Connors, I don't know. I've heard some people talk him up, and basically for similar reason, him and Henley living in the fairway. I do think that that is the case, but we haven't really seen much of a ceiling from Connors, and I do worry a little bit about putter here. Maybe not that better of a putter than him, but I think Henley a little bit over Connors here in this range. And then the lower 7K range, I really don't love much. I mean, I'm probably going to play some Keegan Bradley. He tends to play well on difficult courses. He's been striking his irons very well. Been all right as far as hitting fairways goes, and he's got some around the green game if he's missing these greens. So I do like him. Burns has not really performed well in majors or really US Opens that much in general, but he's been playing really good lately. So that's something you got to weigh, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do there. But Fitz, what are you thinking in the 7K range?
Yeah, he touched on it. I don't, a lot of these guys are just way underpriced. I mean, Shane Lowry, just the form he's been on, just just fitting this course. Yeah, he's going to be high owned, but I'm gonna eat that chalk. Straka, another one. Straka, Hatton, and Spieth. I know he can get a little wild and in trouble, but Spieth gets out of trouble well. Won a U.S. Open before. It seems he's kind of trending in the right direction. I'll play some Spieth. Henley's going to stay in the fairway. And then when you get down lower, you mentioned Connors. He's going to stay in the fairway. Can he make enough putts and get around the green? I probably won't be too high on Connors. I'm just going to be what about Cam Smith? I mean, another one that's wild off the tee, but hasn't been playing great at all lately. But he can, he can another one that can get out of trouble and can putt. And I'll have some flyers there.
We're talking about wild off the tee. Cam Smith might be the wildest of the bunch.
No, that's what I said. I said wild off the tee. He's going to be in trouble, but like you said, everyone, most people are. I'm not going to be heavy on Cam Smith, but I'll throw, at 7-2, I'll throw some there. Finau's been playing better lately. He's one that's long off the tee if he stays in the fairway, and I like Finau, Min Woo Lee, another one I like here. Talking about underpriced Sam Burns, I think Sam Burns could be towards the higher end of the 7K range. I know this price probably came out before the Canadian Open there, but I like Sam Burns, another one, long, accurate, good putter. Matthew Fitzpatrick, another one, has won the U.S. Open before, has been playing a little bit better. I'll play some Fitzpatrick, and then
so you're basically playing the entire 7K range.
No, I skipped. I'm not gonna play Wyndham Clark because
because he hurt you last week.
Yeah, I had a sweat going.
Show me on the dot where Wyndham Clark hurt you.
Oh my god, right in nuts. So no Wyndham Clark. Probably not going to play Sung J M because he just hasn't been playing well lately. I know Ben Griffin's been playing well lately, but I'm not going to play him here. So, yeah. The whole 7K range for you.
I actually do like Spieth quite a bit. He's, looked good at Memorial. Surprisingly, his best aspect of his game has been off the tee. So I do think that he could play well here, and I think it's going to come down to his putter, which recently he's been putting a little bit better. So I do like him, and if it's really, really difficult and everybody's missing putts, maybe his missed putts don't hurt him as much. So I do like Spieth a little bit here too. if we dive into the 6K range, this is where it's going to get interesting. I think the only people that really anybody's going to really gravitate to are Harris English at 6,700, Robert McIntyre at 6,700, and then Taylor Pendrith at 6,500. And I do have interest in them, but I kind of want to see where the ownership goes. And then I actually like Aaron Rai quite a bit at 6,400. We're saying that fairways are going to matter. That's a guy that lives in the fairway. He can generally get out of trouble with the bogey avoidance. So I think he could be all right at this course. And at 6,400, you don't need him to do too much. But Dave, what are you thinking here?
And Rye's coming off back-to-back miscuts, so little unsure about whether I want to play him or not, but I definitely like the logic to it. Harris English, I'm with you there. A couple of guys you didn't name that I'm looking at for good drives, fairways gained. Siwoo Kim, Daniel Berger, both playing. Berger playing pretty solid golf on the year. Siwoo's always erratic. Might not want to play him, but Berger's going to make my short list for sure. Harris English, JT Poston, probably not the best in majors, but his stats seem to line up pretty well here.
He has been playing good golf this year.
Yeah, it's a little concerning to play him in a major, but he's been playing pretty well in general. It's going to be tough because those guys really don't line up the way that you want them to in terms of stats. But Lucas Glover, as you get a little bit lower here, and it's not looking great. Thorbjorn Olsen played pretty well in Canada. He's another one at 6K flat to look at. But this is where if you start with Scottie, you're looking at loading up on multiple ones of these guys and just be able to get up to a halfway decent golfer above 7,100. So it's something to consider. You might not want to have multiple guys under 7K in your lineup, and those are all things to consider as you build them all out.
Fitz, what about you in the 6K range?
Yep. You mentioned you don't want to play JT Poston at a major. He was fifth at the PGA. But I'm gonna have just throw darts at a lot of these guys actually. So I'll just go over some that you guys didn't mention. I'll play Jason Day. Justin Rose. I like Patrick Reed. He's a grinder. You mentioned Daniel Berger. I really like. I'm not gonna play DJ, even though I'm tempted to. Adam Scott, some there. Cam Young's been playing better as of late. I like him. Usually, he's got some distance. I like him on difficult courses. Brian Harmon, guy that's going to stay in the fairway. That's maybe Nick Taylor is going to stay in the fairway to be accurate. Matt Wallace, maybe take a stab there. That's probably maybe some Gary Woodland down there at 6K flat. And
he just hasn't. He's had flashes this year, but I don't think we're having a Pebble Beach.
No, like I said, but I throw a dart there. What about a name I haven't seen in forever? Mark Leishman, man. When's the last time we seen him anywhere?
He won on Live. What was it prior to the PGA? I forget where they were, but and if he's playing okay golf, I think
he could do worse at 6K. I'm not gonna.
But he's another guy that's never really been accurate off the tee. I remember when he won. What was that? At Torrey Pines, and he basically didn't hit a fairway all week. So,
but he won.
yeah, that's true.
He won out of the rough there. Obviously, this isn't the Torrey Pines, and it's not the same form Leishman. But again, it's a name there. He could do worse. I'm making a strong case, but
yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing too. If you can find someone in this 6K range that you're comfortable with, I definitely think it goes a long way towards building Scottie lineups, because we're going to get into the 5K range and there's not a lot here. You can make a case for some of these guys. They've shown flashes, and Vic Perez or Sam Stevens, but are you really going to rely on them at the US Open? I don't know about that. Doug Gim has been playing okay golf, but I worry a little bit about him with being able to string together some bogeys here. Griot has been playing good enough. I think I'm willing to go there. I do think that he plays difficult courses pretty well, can avoid some bogeys. He's accurate off the tee, so I do like that. Matt McCarty looked pretty good last week, and I think that his game could potentially translate here. So I'd be willing to go there at 5,700. And then we're getting a little scarce here. Maybe Mark Hubbard, 5,600, worth a look there. And then there's probably not much below here that I really like. Fitz, is there anything that stands out to you in the 5K range?
Not that stands out. I mean, you mentioned a lot of names I was looking at. Grillo. Just find one of these kind of grindy Euro guys. None that I have any strong conviction on. One I saw that was really low, Lanto Griffin at 5'2". He was 27th last week. He's shown some flashes this year. He's a guy, good ball striker, accurate. But other than that, like I said, you mentioned a couple of them. I do like Grillo. Pick a Euro guy here you like and sprinkle a little bit. But yeah, this is getting choppy down here.
Yeah. Dave, anything you see in the 5K range?
I mean, the only thing is if you're going to go down to the 5K range, the guys that you mentioned are the guys that everyone's playing.
Yeah.
Grillo, it's all the same. The same names I had are the same names you have. So I'd be a little wary about how much you're playing of those guys, especially if you're going to go Scottie Grillo and then build from there. I'm sure a lot of people are going to try to do that.
You guys don't think that Phil's going to do the career slam this year here?
No.
I mean, he hit the shot of his life over the weekend. I don't know how much more he can ask for.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's really not any other names down here. Justin Lauer played pretty good golf throughout the year. See if that actually translates. No, he's missed a whole bunch of cuts lately. For some reason, I think he's played really good golf, but he hasn't. The guys that you looked at, Grillo's probably my favorite from that 5K range.
Yeah, and then I've heard Goddard's name a couple times. Has some okay finishes this year. Been playing all right golf, so I could see that. But if any of these guys are garnering ownership, I'm fine not going there really. And I think you could skip over this range if you wanted your Scotty lineups, and it might actually be the prudent move. Now, obviously, if you want to get someone a little bit more expensive in there as your second man in, you're gonna have to live down here, but really don't love much. And that's the thing with this week is a lot of times in tournaments, these guys down here can make up for their price and maybe holes in their game with stringing together some birdies or doing some good scoring. This week, we're not going to have that. There's not going to be any birdie streaks. There's not going to be any scoring, really. It's going to be where do you place? And do you expect any of these guys to be able to first of all, even make the cut? And then second of all, actually get up there a little bit because placement points are going to matter a lot this week. So definitely want to keep that in mind when you're building your lineups this week. But Fitz, I mean, any overall just thoughts on how you're going to attack this or just anything that you think really stands out?
No, just I want to play good golfers that are distance and accuracy. Obviously having both is tough, so I'll build with a little bit of each. Like I mentioned, some guys that can get out of trouble and are good with their wedges if they got to punch out. And I like good putters because you're gonna need to make a bunch of 48 footers for par. So I'll probably look for good putters and just long and straight distance, accuracy, and and like we mentioned, got to have, I think one of those top 5 guys up there is most likely going to win. I think Bryson wins. I'll be overweight on Bryson, but wouldn't surprise anybody if Scottie just does Scottie things and wins also. So
Yeah. Dave, what about you? Any strategies you're looking at, or just certain golfers you're tending to look at more?
Nothing really different than you guys talked about. Strokes gained good golfer this week. At the majors, you want to play as much of the elites as you can, get as much of that win equity. Because, like Fitz was saying, there's no scoring out there this week. You want to end up with a bunch of guys that are near the top of the leaderboard. That's going to be the only way to win a GPP this week. So, going to be tough. Going to be interesting to see how those lineups shake out once you start plugging in your guys. But long and straight, and try to get as many high quality golfers as you can in that lineup.
Yeah, and I do think it makes sense to build, skill sets. So it seems like a lot of people are leaning towards the accuracy over the distance this week. And it's probably the right call. But I mean, if you want to allocate some of your lineups to straight up bombers, that generally tends to play pretty well at the US Open. So if it's not what everybody's looking for this week, you could potentially gain an upper hand if all of a sudden everybody's going at these accuracy guys and the bombers have a bit of an advantage. Then you just gave yourself an advantage on people going a little bit underweight on that skill set. So just something to consider there. I'm going to build a couple sets of that as well.
Yeah, especially with rain in the forecast. I mean, if the course gets wet, you're not going to get a lot of roll on your drive. So those guys with those distance, the carry distance are going to have a big advantage over guys that, the shorter players there.
Now the only thing I'll say with that is if the fairways are wet, it's a little bit easier to stay in the fairway as well. You're not getting roll out into the rough. So maybe the advantage that the bombers are getting if they're hitting out of wet rough is not really that great compared to shorter hitters. Even though they're shorter, they're still hitting out of the fairway. So
true.
But at the same time, I mean, you said it. We're gonna get there's just always freaking rain now every day, but we're gonna get wet conditions. But I do think that it could dry out, and they're gonna try and have it dry out as much as possible. And regardless of how much rain they get, they put that sub air system in the greens. So generally, what you see is a lot of these longer hitters have a higher ball flight as well. So that'll make it a little bit easier to stick these greens and if they're running at a 14 or even a 15 on the stimp and firm, you definitely want the guys that can hit a higher ball flight to keep it on the green.
Yep. So Bryson wins.
Yeah, hell yeah. And then Ludwig comes in second. Actually, I bet him top 20 and outright. So just top 20, fine. But that's going to do it for this week. I think we did a pretty good job going through not just the pricing, but some strategies, some things to consider when you're building your lineups this week. But good to have you guys back on. It gets pretty annoying screaming into the void and only having a guest on every 4 weeks. So love having you guys on.
Yeah, man, that was fun. Happy to be back. Life gets in the way, but it's always good talking golf with the boys. So thanks for having me, and good to be back. And happy hunting this week, and happy Father's Day to you, Derek. And let's enjoy watching some golf this weekend.
Any parting words, Dave?
Good to be back. I'll give you my betting card before we head out here. I've got Victor Hovland at 60-1. I am with you on Ludwig. I got him at 30 with a 25% boost. And I'm going back to the well with Colin Morikawa for the first time in a long time. Okay. 30-1 with a 30% boost. I think he can hit it long and straight. So let's see if that plays out.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I have a 2-man card. I just have Bryson at 9-1 and Ludwig at 13. I made a top 5 on Bryson, top 20 on Ludwig, and I have a top 20 on Straka. So that's all we got for this week. But excited for the U.S. Open.
I'm just going to put all my money on Major Brooks at big odds.
You don't need to put all your money on there. He's got big odds.
Probably still not as big as they should be, though.
Yeah, no, I haven't. Yeah, no.
All right, but that's going to do it for this week. I'm your host, Derek Helm. Check out thehelmsports.com. I will have everything up in the My Bets tab tomorrow night. Check out themadlabmma.com. As soon as I make a bet, goes right into the Discord. So definitely want to check that out. Obviously, MMA, UFC, boxing, Mad Lab has you covered there. We have every sport covered in the Discord. So come check us out. But as always, greatly appreciated to everyone that is listening, supporting. It is a major week. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show around. Goes a long way. Would be greatly appreciated. But I'm your host, Derek Helm. And remember,
Just have fun out there.